everyone. And to those of you just joining us, welcome. We are truly grateful for the public's patience, but most importantly, we are glad you are joining us today virtually. Beginning Tuesday, December 7th and going forward, we plan to return to our hybrid pilot meeting as long as it is safe. I look forward to being back on site with my council colleagues for December 7th meeting and with the public being able to attend in person. If you plan to join us on site, the council will be following CDC guidelines to prevent and reduce transmission of COVID-19 and maintain healthy business operations and work environments. Also, per the Mayor's Executive Order 3 of 2021, masks and face coverings are required while in city facilities, even if vaccinated. We will also be helping people maintain 6-foot social distancing. Thank you. We will begin with a moment of silence as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. When we are done, we will turn our audio back on. I will now go through our public meeting rules. Again, I want to welcome everyone who is joining us tonight. You may have noticed on our agenda that we have our typical formal meeting agenda. And before that, we also have a quick local building authority agenda. And of course, the Board of Canvassers agenda. As the city's elected officials, council members not only serve on the city council, we also serve as the local building authority board. And with the mayor, we all serve as the Board of Canvassers. Think of it as the council wearing different hats for each of these roles. If you are joining us for public comment opportunities we have later on the agenda, we are accepting your comments through WebEx. And for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line. Before we begin our LBA agenda items, I want to mention and review our rules of decorum. These are guidelines that the City Council has always had in place to help our meeting progress in an orderly, civil, efficient way. And these rules also apply as we wear our LBA hats. These rules of decorum help us move through the agenda and give everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions without feeling intimidated. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum begin from the moment you arrive in our virtual meeting. We respect all points of view and we welcome new insights. However, while giving your comments, please be respectful. Avoid yelling, profanity, or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. If you use profanity during your comment, your line will be muted. And if any comments reach a level of disrespect, I will ask that you be muted and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you are welcome to email council members or call our comment line. In addition, our staff will request your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name doesn't meet this requirement, staff will use the chat feature to gather this information from you. Taylor Hill from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with attendees to coordinate on any questions with your commenting registration. Staff is handling a number of tasks. Please limit messages to technical issues and minimal changes to your registration. If you'd like to send any comment, please feel free to. You can mail us at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. You can email us at council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can call us at 801-535-7654. This brings us to our local building authority item B1, public hearing regarding an ordinance for the local building authority budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2021-2022. Before we begin taking comments, I will first turn the time over to Ben Ludke, one of our council policy analysts, to give a short introduction. Ben?
Sorry, Madam Chair, we've had a few, oh, there's Ben.
Yep, sorry, Madam Chair, I didn't know I was on the docket for this one.
That's okay. Thank you for being here.
For the local building authority, this is related to the city refunding. It may be more familiar to listeners as refinancing bonds that were previously issued for libraries. This is the Glendale Library and the Marmalade Library. Refunding the bonds saves taxpayers money by having a lower interest rate that the city pays on the annual debt service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. I will look to Isaac Canedo, who's helping us with public comments for our first public comment on this section. Isaac.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have two people here to comment on LBA Budget Amendment 1. First is Holly Putnam. George Chapman. Holly, you are now unmuted. Holly? Okay, we will move on to George and come back. George, you are now unmuted.
Okay. Right. Okay. The refunding of the bonds theoretically allows Salt Lake City to have more borrowing ability, I think, for future projects. So the question is, if we're doing this, why aren't we also at the same time putting in other projects that instead of waiting for a year or two when we have how much extra money we have, why aren't we putting in those projects now? For instance, the fleet block needs a park and libraries. We need a few more pocket libraries. So if we're refunding the bonds for a lower interest rate, that should provide us with more money for pocket libraries, not building new buildings, but actually renting a building and converting it like we did on the Sprague Firehouse. Pocket libraries are really, really important, just as important as parks. So I'm just encouraging the city to consider that when they're refunding bonds like this. Those are my comments.
I haven't been able to get in touch with Holly, but we'll make sure to get her comment. That is everybody we have for today.
Great. Thank you, Isaac. George, thank you for your comments. And hopefully Holly will get her comments in. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the board close the public hearing and refer this item to a future date.
Second.
I have a motion by Council Member Dugan and a second, that's the word I'm looking for, a second by Council Member Ferris. I will go ahead and roll call this. Council Member Dugan.
Yes.
Council Member Valdemoros.
Yes.
Council Member Wharton.
Yes.
Council Member Mono.
Yes.
Council Member Ferris.
Yes.
Council Member Petro Eschler.
Yes.
I am a yes, that passes unanimously. With that, this concludes our local building authority agenda. I will ask for a motion to adjourn as the local building authority board and convene as the city council.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn as the local building authority and reconvene as the city council.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton, a second by Councilmember Dugan. I will roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We are now convened as the Salt Lake City Council. And we are moving on to item D1. This is where the council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall recognizing December 1st as World AIDS Day in Salt Lake City. I will now read the resolution. Whereas, according to estimates from the Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, there are now more than 38 million people throughout the world living with HIV. Of these, 1.8 million are children. 1.7 million new infections occurred among adults and children in 2019 alone. And whereas in Utah, HIV incidence has not seen a significant decrease in new HIV infections when other metropolitan areas have. And whereas in Utah, the rate of new HIV diagnosis with stage 3 infections has not decreased in the last 5 years. And whereas up to 85% of people living with HIV in Utah reside along the Wasatch Front. And whereas the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has found that HIV-related stigma has a significant negative impact on people living with HIV, increases new infections, and delays people seeking testing for HIV. And whereas stigma, shame, and fear make people less likely to discuss their sexual health with doctors and often leads to delays in seeking testing or treatment for sexually transmitted infections and HIV, which can have serious long-term health consequences. And whereas despite rigorous testing of all donated blood, the Food and Drug Administration have yet to rescind its recommendation that blood donation centers turn away members of the LGBTQ+ community, especially gay men and transgender people, increasing stigma. And whereas the elimination of stigma in Utah will lead to better physical and mental health outcomes for people living with HIV, increased HIV disclosure, increased HIV testing, and decreased HIV infections. And whereas World AIDS Day was established in 1988 and is observed each year on December 1st to provide an opportunity for individuals and communities to take action and help educate for HIV/AIDS prevention, treatment, and care. And whereas Salt Lake City has joined other cities around the world in an effort to increase awareness, reduce stigma, provide education about HIV/AIDS, and demonstrate compassion for those affected by HIV. Now, therefore, be it resolved. The Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City hereby recognize December 1st, 2021 as World AIDS Day in Salt Lake City and encourage all residents to unite together in the fight against HIV/AIDS, reduce the stigma of HIV/AIDS, and support those who are living with or have been affected by HIV/AIDS. Be it further resolved, Salt Lake City urges the Food and Drug Administration to rescind its recommendation that blood donation centers turn away donors in the LGBTQ+ community based solely on sexual history, since according to the CDC, all blood for transfusion is tested for evidence of certain infections and disease pathogens, such as human immune deficiency virus. I would like to recognize that we have Amer Afros and Jared Hafen from the Utah AIDS Foundation. I'd like to welcome you and give you an opportunity to speak to the resolution. Do we have either of them with us? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Council staff, if either of them appear, I will certainly come back to this and give a moment for them to, if we were in person, they would accept the resolution and say a few words, but we will have them say a few words. With that, I would ask for a motion on this.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Roll call. Councilmember Mono?
Sorry. Yes.
Councilmember Ferris?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously.
And Madam Chair, I believe they are here.
Oh, great.
I'm just checking to see if they are panelists and if they're able to speak. Isaac, can you move them over to
I could
panelists?
not figure out how to get off mute. I apologize.
Hi, Jared. I see that you are talking, at least. I see your tile. So I want to thank you for being here. I don't know if Amer is here as well, but I'd love to turn the time over to you to say a few words about the resolution if you'd like.
Well, I just want to thank you. We are all very proud of the work we do at the Utah AIDS Foundation. I've been there 7 years and have worked in HIV in over 17 years, and I'm still very proud and passionate about it. So, and I want to thank the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor Mendenhall for joining us in the fight against HIVs. I'll keep it simple, short and simple.
Perfect. And if I can just take just a quick moment of personal privilege, the very first time I got involved in any sort of civic service, it was in 1995. Yes, I'm that old. I was a junior in high school, and I became like a peer educator through the Utah AIDS Foundation. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Back then. Wonderful. Well, thank you for being here, Jared.
You bet.
We will now turn the time. The next item, excuse me, is the council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall declaring November 20th as Transgender Day of Remembrance in Salt Lake City. I will now turn the time over to Councilmember Chris Wharton to read the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a joint resolution recognizing November 20th as Transgender Day of Remembrance in Salt Lake City. Whereas in 1998, Rita Hester, a transgender woman of color, was murdered in Allston, Massachusetts. And whereas the following year, Gwendolyn Ann Smith, a transgender woman, created the first Transgender Day of Remembrance in honor of Rita Hester and other transgender people who have lost their lives to violence. And whereas Transgender Day of Remembrance is observed annually to memorialize those lives that have been lost as a result of transphobic violence. And whereas deaths from transphobic violence have increased significantly yet again this year, for a total of 69 victims in the US and 412 victims worldwide as of November 1st. And whereas the true number of victims is unknown because of intentional misgendering and the difficulty identifying the bodies of many victims. And whereas transgender individuals, especially transgender people of color, continue to be disproportionately affected by education discrimination, employment discrimination, bullying, limited access to healthcare, domestic violence, homelessness, economic instability, and poverty. And whereas the transgender community has been particularly hard hit by the continuing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas since 2006, Transgender Education Advocates, or T of Utah, has organized a vigil in Salt Lake City every year, and whereas Salt Lake City values the lives and contributions to our community by transgender people, and whereas Salt Lake City has the responsibility to promote equality and prosperity for all members of the transgender community, and whereas Salt Lake City is proud to stand against the discrimination of transgender people, now therefore be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City strongly value the lives and contributions of transgender people, honor those lives that have been lost as a result of transphobic violence throughout the United States of America and the world, and formally recognize Saturday, November 20th, 2021 as Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Thank you, Councilmember Wharton. At this time, I'd like to recognize a few people that we have joining us. We have Candace Metzler, the Executive Director of Transgender Education Advocates of Utah, Stacy Jackson Roberts, with the CEO of the Utah Pride Center, and Samantha Taylor, the Secretary of the Utah LGBTQ+ Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I see Dr. Metzler here with us. So I will turn the time over to you, Dr. Metzler. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for this opportunity. On behalf of Transgender Education Advocates of Utah, I want to thank Mayor Mendenhall and the Salt Lake City Council for recognizing transgender and gender diverse members of our community and the importance of the Transgender Day of Remembrance for our community. I want to also thank all those who assisted in drafting the resolution, and especially want to recognize Samantha Taylor for her amazing work. I have to admit that when I read the resolution, that it brought tears to my eyes to see something so well written that it captured the nuance and complexity of the ongoing violence and why we come together as a community each year to mark the Transgender Day of Remembrance. What gives me hope is the acknowledgement of the systems that make some people more vulnerable to this kind of violence, and address of the things that we can do to foster change, like creating a perception that trans and gender diverse people are valued members of our community, a place where we belong and our contributions, hopes, talents, and potential are recognized and valued, like focusing on education systems that are inclusive and responsive to the needs of our trans and gender diverse young people, like making sure such students can get through school by doing everything we can to address and reduce bullying, like creating a community where trans and gender diverse young people can look forward to a future with opportunities to have good paying jobs, financial mobility, and access to healthcare. A community that teaches love and how to work together by example. What moved me the most is what anyone would want: to be valued, to belong, to know someone cares about my struggles and stands with me in solidarity against intolerance and hate. I know how valuable that is and how much it means for so many people. It's the kindling of hope for many. Thank you for being an ally, for your continued solidarity with the transgender and gender diverse people of Salt Lake and Utah. It means so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Metzler. Thank you for joining us and for those beautiful words. You brought
It's an
tears
honor to be here.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. Now we will begin our public hearings. Isaac Canedo on our staff will be calling the names.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that
we
we
need a
accept the
motion.
resolution.
I'm so sorry. Rain, I will look for a motion adopting this resolution.
I move that we accept the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Wharton. I will roll call this. Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Duguid,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris,
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That passes unanimously.
And I'm a yes too.
Oh, Councilmember Valdemoros, I couldn't see your tile.
Sorry, I was walking, but I'm here. Just got to
Thank-
my other location.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you so much, and thank you again for being here, Doctor.
Thank you all. It's been an honor.
Now we will begin our public hearings. Isaac Canedo on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Isaac will announce three names at a time so people can have some notice. When it's your turn to speak, Isaac will say your name and unmute your line, and your 2 minutes will start. At the 2-minute mark, we will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you're unable to finish your comment, please refer to your chat screen. Our staff will help you get our contact information so you can finish your comment. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, just let us know that you're here to listen. Our first public hearing item E1 is regarding a grant application. 2020, I'm gonna turn the time over. I'm not gonna read all that. Before we begin taking comments, I'm first going to turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, our council staff policy analyst, to give a short introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city applies for grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, there is just one grant, the State Asset Forfeiture Grant Competitive Program, which will be used to fund the purchase of an overt pole camera kit, Narcan nasal spray, and drug prevention resource cards. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Isaac, we will start with our first public comment, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is nobody here for comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer item E1 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Ferris. Roll calling, Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Council, I can't see tile, so Councilmember Warden. Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Mano,
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. Our next item, item E2, is a public hearing regarding an ordinance that would amend the zoning of property at 1945 South, 1300 East. I will first turn the time over to Brian Fulmer to give a short introduction. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal to amend the zoning map for the property from RMF 35 to RMF 45. The applicant would like to replace the current multifamily residential building with a larger multifamily residential development. The current building has 24 units, and under the proposed zoning, a building could have 31 units. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Isaac, we can start with our first public comment, please.
We will have Irvin Stankevitz speak first, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then Mitchell Rudd. Irvin, you are unmuted.
I've never done this before, so I don't even know if I'm hooked up.
Yeah, we can hear you. You get 2
Oh,
minutes to
okay.
share your thoughts.
Great. Well, our whole neighborhood, I have dealt with 24 of my neighbors. We've gotten together and we all concur that with all the concerns and complaints of these 24 people, we question if the developer is, against it. It just seems like an abomination against existing codes. So how long would it be before if they pull this off, changing the zoning and going so large, how long would it be before they bulldoze the whole west side of 13th East and put in another 10-story granite furniture type of development? In any case, I have a lot of other concerns and complaints, but I felt there were a lot of other neighbors that put in their 2 cents worth. There's also no maintenance going on behind the buildings, and we have a problem with how they could all of a sudden not have a backyard ordinance. They have to have space from the construction. Thank you very much for listening.
Now we will have Cindy Cromer, followed by Mitchell Rudd, and then George Chapman. Cindy, you are unmuted.
Well, thanks, everybody. You know that things are seriously run amok when I show up about a hearing in Sugar House because those folks are talented and they generally take care of themselves without any assistance from me, but this is seriously off the rails. First of all, as you've heard earlier tonight, the RMF 45 allows uses by right that triggered the housing loss mitigation evaluation on Bueno Avenue. Allowed by right would be 45 feet. If you look at the urban design, the streetscape here, that is just totally inappropriate. The predominant structure is a single family residence here, and the condos that are medical offices to the south are very low profile. And the site is on a hill above 13th East. I have no idea what people are thinking, but by right, this property owner could go 45 feet. He could also have a very large assisted living facility, which I don't think would be an appropriate use. So the urban design is completely inappropriate. The medical condos, because they're condominiums, are likely to persist for quite a long time because of the divided ownership. Anyone who thinks that trading 24 existing units for 31 market rate units is an improvement is just not with what it's like to protect existing housing. We already have 24 units here. 7 more is not a sufficient benefit to raise the rents to market rate. And nothing in this request requires the owner to build the units now. You're offering an increased value of over $750,000, and nothing guarantees that he will build the new units in return. The appropriate zone, in my opinion, is an RMF 35. I've shared that with your staff. I think that if you're going to proceed on the course you're on, you have to write a bond.
Now we will hear from Mitchell Rudd, followed by George Chapman, and then Judy Short. Mitchell, you are unmuted.
Hello. I'm the current president of the Condominium Association for Highland Park Plaza, which is the building just south of this development, proposed development, or new development. And basically, there is a road between us that used to be called Hollywood Avenue, but was changed into an alley in the 1980s, and the road sign was taken down. But ever since then, we have maintained that road, our condominium association, without any help from any of the other apartment buildings or anyone else around us. We are the sole snow removal and also summer maintenance as far as new slurry coat and so forth. And so basically, we are not as a group opposed to the rezone or to the redevelopment, but we will not give up our rights to the private road or parking, nor can we allow their increased traffic to cross over our property and parking lot. We are not, like I said, the only ones who maintain the private road, and we can show records of that for the last 30 years or more. And we are not willing to have our parking lot become any more of a driveway than it currently is. And that increases our costs and risks of accidents or liabilities. We are a medical facility. We have occasional need for emergency medical device services to come to our building. So we have to have constant egress. Also, there are handicap parking stalls that would be affected by this that allow patients to get into the basement of our building. So that is our concern.
Now we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Judy Short, and then Scott Cruz. George, you are unmuted.
Oh boy. Okay. Boy, Cindy Cromer, I absolutely agree with. 13th East is already maxed out. It can't take any more density. This idea that we're going to increase density for a street that was meant for single-family homes, it just doesn't make sense. You're talking about increasing pollution. Don't worry about the inland port. Worry about increasing density on a street that's already maxed out. Cindy Cromer had a great term for this type of project, and I'd like to use it. It's called sweating the land. The land should stay the way it is. She's right. Essentially, what you would do, if you rezone this property, it would result in higher rents. You will destroy affordable housing. That's essentially what will happen. And you're going to overwhelm the street with more congestion. So I agree with the previous two comments. Please do not rezone this. Thanks for listening.
Now we will have Judy Short, followed by Scott Cruz. Judy, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My recommendation is that you deny this request to rezone this parcel. Mr. Chang wants to build 46 units, but the parcel is only 0.79 of an acre, so he can only build 31. This is an increase of 7 units. What a waste of resources to expend all that energy to tear down 24 affordable units and replace them with 31 expensive units. Mr. Chang would have to raise the rent to cover his costs. It currently costs about $200,000 per unit to build apartments in Sugar House. The tenants would have a difficult time finding a place they can afford. The majority of the street frontage in this area are single-family homes, with the exception of the dental building. I've been a patient at that building for 30 years or more and have had the opportunity to drive down the Hollywood Street in back of this dilapidated apartment building many, many times and see the disheveled parking lot and carports with cars crammed in this way and that. It never looks any better. From the front or sides, it doesn't look any better. Just building a new building won't cause Mr. Chang to be an upstanding citizen and maintain his building. We should be building residential properties to scale, and we should be enforcing the city policies when units are allowed to become substandard because of lack of maintenance. Shame on you as a city council who doesn't hold this as a high priority in your city. We need affordable housing. There are plenty of other places to add expensive housing, but we're not getting even one affordable unit in this project. You should use the revenue from the Good Landlord program to inspect and ensure that our housing is up to acceptable standards. Thank you.
And now we will hear from Scott Cruz. Scott, you are unmuted.
Thank you, City Council. I appreciate the time to address you. I also work with the Highland Dental Plaza to the south, and I just have concerns about the additional traffic cutting across our property and through the back alleyways. It's already often dangerous, and you know, the current plan calls for, the current proposed plan, although I know it can be changed, calls for the traffic to, it's hard to decide how that traffic's going to be managed, but there are a lot of people that drive backwards trying to get to these apartments currently, and there are other issues with traffic coming into and out of these apartments as they are currently. And, you know, adding a few more units is just going to increase the traffic through some of those back alleyways and rows. And, you know, that's the only thing that I have a lot of concern with. So additionally, I think an improvement could be made to the building. So in a lot of different ways, but these are my thoughts. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate your attention.
Council members, we have nobody else for this item.
Thank you to all those who commented. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to future council meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Roll calling. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Petra Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. Our last public hearing item, E3, is regarding a budget amendment number 4 for fiscal year 2021-2022. Before I begin taking comments, I will turn the time over to Ben Ludke, one of our policy analysts, for a brief introduction. Ben, the time is yours.
There are 41 proposed items in budget amendment number 4. The total expenditures would be $72.5 million. Most of that is for the next round of the voter-approved streets reconstruction bond and refinancing a couple of older bonds to save taxpayers money. There are also several items to spend nearly $14.5 million of the city's American Rescue Plan Act or ARPA funding. The motion sheet tonight includes options that would adopt some items listed on the document, and other items not listed could be considered at a later date. The administration's proposal, the council staff report, and the related documents are all available in today's meeting packet. The council has a dedicated website for budget information. You can find it at tinyurl.com/SLC FY22 budget. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Isaac, we will start with our public comment, please.
We have George Chapman. George, you are unmuted.
George, we can't hear you.
Okay, you talked.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, George.
Okay. I'm surprised nobody else wants to talk about $71 million. You talked about the overflow shelter. One of the things you should be asking for, demanding, is drug dogs. Every other shelter for the homeless is endemic with drugs, and we need to return the use of drug dogs along with ensuring policies that do not allow use of them against unarmed civilians. But we really do need the drug dogs. On the pay plan, obviously, you need to update it because social workers and others working with the homeless and mental issues deserve, and they get higher salaries than what you're offering. You need not just the bonuses you're suggesting, but a retention bonus, not just for hiring in a finder's fee, but a retention bonus. And the budget amendment also needs cameras in parks. All parks have problem areas, and they need cameras. You also need restrooms for winter, since the city is closing the restrooms. And again, uniform officers in parks will go a long way to making police officers less intimidating and approachable to certain demographics, of course. And Darren is right, this city is increasing the potential future deficits for needed funding, and more should be saved. And you even had that in the staff report. On the D6 street bonds, they should be used for more basic maintenance. And what about the fleet block park? You should be working on the fleet block. The bond you're suggesting in the future is $8.6 million for Pioneer Park, but fleet block needs more. Look at the park score map and the area from I-15 to State Street, and it's centered by the fleet block, and it's underserved by parks. So I'm asking the budget amendment to include a fleet block park.
And that is everyone we have for this item.
Thank you, George, for your comments. I will turn to look for a motion. Sorry.
And if the council needs help kind of walking through it, I don't know if Ben's ready to could walk the council through it. It's closing the public hearing and partially adopting is what I believe was discussed at the last briefing.
I think
That is correct. And I'm not sure if the squinty eyes are because we can't read it.
Is this motion sheet in our Dropbox?
It might
It
not
was-
be yet, since it was updated very recently.
Madam Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending the FY 2021-2022 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document as shown on the motion sheet, except item G5. I further note or move that the council approve a resolution authorizing application to the Federal Bureau of Reclamation's Water, Smart Water, and Energy Efficiency Grant Program related to Rose Park Golf Course.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. Sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I have that the motion was from Councilmember Wharton.
yeah, I was just thinking about the budget amendment. I mean, this includes everything we just talked about, right? During the briefing?
The items included are the 4 you straw polled last week,
Okay,
the housekeeping items, and then the grant consent items, as well as 1 council added item to reclassify several positions in the council office.
okay,
It does not include any of the ARPA funded items in section E and C, and it does not include most of the items in section A. The items you would be adopting are listed on the motion sheet. If you wanted to look through those individual items, I think Taylor can put it back up on the screen.
No, that's fine. Just the way I heard and read the motion, it seemed like we were adopting all of it, but that was me. So I have a motion by Cindy.
Actually, I heard the same thing that you did, Madam Chair. So I'm not sure. We probably need to check with Council Member or Council Vice Chair Wharton to see if his intent was to adopt everything or just those things that are on the list as tentatively planned for adoption tonight.
Yeah, let me see that motion sheet because
I think, can we have our city attorney weigh in on the language of this?
Yeah, because motion 1 is doing the whole thing, I think, Ben.
yeah.
That's how it reads anyway, because I think
My understanding is the controlling language is in the second line where it says as shown on the motion sheet, and then those items are individually listed.
okay. I can see that. I would like to double check with our city attorney or anyone from the attorney's office or Cindy Lou so that we're clear on this, that we're only adopting these certain items because it did confuse me and I feel like I knew what was supposed to be happening.
I'm here, Council Chair Fowler, and I can see how it may not be as clear as you all would like it to be. And I think one way to clarify it is by stating for the record that the items that will be adopted are only limited to those on the motion sheet. And so that everyone is clear, it's not the entire budget amendment, but those items that are listed in front of us.
Okay.
And it was Vice Chair Wharton who made the motion, so he could make that clarification if that would be helpful.
Yes.
I think it would. Do you mind restating your motion with that clarification, Councilmember Wharton?
No, that's fine. I did say as shown on the motion sheet, so I'll just note that as shown on the motion sheet, it includes a list of several items there from sections A, D, and or a few from item. Do you want me to just read the list or? Okay.
It's a pretty long list. I think it goes to the second page,
It does.
council member. Yeah.
So there's, if you could scroll down for me, there's a few from section A, a few from section D, some from G, and then one item from I. And so it doesn't include all of those other sections, which has been said would include like most of the ARPA funding sections.
So, and then who seconded this motion?
Madam Chair, I seconded. I do want to be clear, though, that we're talking about excluding specifically G5.
Correct, we are. So I'm just going to restate the motion if I may. So we have a motion by Councilmember Wharton proposing to close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance that would amend FY 2021-2022 that would include only the items listed on the motion sheet except G5. And it would authorize a resolution for the Federal Bureau of Reclamation's Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grant Program related to Rose Park Golf Course. That is the motion I hear from Councilmember Wharton. Is that still your second, Councilmember Ferris?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is there any confusion on this, council members? Okay, I'm going to roll call it. Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
And Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes. I will then ask Councilmember Ferris to recuse himself so we can address item G5. We'll have staff contact you when we are done addressing item G5.
Certainly.
Thank you. With that, council members, I would look for a motion regarding G5.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt item G5.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Wharton. Roll calling this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Councilmember Ferris is recused, and that passes. We'll get Councilmember Ferris back. Thank you, Councilmember Ferris. We are now at section F with potential action items. Potential action item F1 is regarding an ordinance with University Ivory House zoning map amendment. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono, a second by Councilmember Dugan. Roll calling. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes. Our next item, F2, is regarding an ordinance regarding technology-related land use text amendments. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Ferris. Roll calling this, unless there's discussion. Not seeing any. Roll calling this. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. We are now in section G, which are comments. We first have questions to the mayor from City Council. Are there any questions for Madam Mayor As always, thank you so much for being here with us. Any questions, council members? One of these days, we're just going to put her on the spot. Thank you for being here, Madam Mayor. Yes, Dan.
How is lacrosse season?
It's really hard for a 5-year-old, Coach Dugan. It was tough. And frankly, we were grateful when it ended.
Is Mila playing lacrosse?
We tried, yeah. We did a season.
It's a tough age, yes.
Fun. Good question. Okay. Moving on, we are now at our general comment portion of our agenda. This is for comments about general topics and items that were not scheduled for a hearing tonight. I went over all of the City Council's rules of decorum earlier, and all of those same rules apply here now. Quickly, in case you forgot or just logged in, please be respectful. Don't use profanity. Don't just be we want to hear your comments. We value your comments. We value different opinions. So, value that and give a nice, respectful comment. If you can't, email us and we will provide all of the contact information in the chat for you to email us or mail us or call us. Taylor Hill is going to be moderating and can message with people if you are having troubles. Isaac Canedo on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. He'll list 3 names at a time. We will, when he calls your name, we'll unmute you, start the 2-minute timer. When your 2 minutes is up, we will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you have further comments, again, you can mail us, email us, call us. We're happy to hear all of your comments. I will turn the time over to Isaac for our comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, we will have Sarah Balland, followed by Jack Klinghoffer, and then Nigel Swaby. Sarah, you are unmuted.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Sarah J. Beland, and I live in District 1, just a few doors down from Salt Lake City's first community fridge, which is located at 1151 North, 1500 West. Since my neighbor installed the community fridge on their own property on my block, I've experienced firsthand its public benefits, which I'm going to share with you right now. Community fridges, aka fridges, are installed in localities all over the world and are a means to combat food apartheid, reduce food waste, and even serve as a means for folks to exchange ideas, messages, and art with one another. Fridges complement nonprofit food banks by serving hyper-localized and culturally appropriate foods 24/7, day or night, and strengthening community bonds, particularly during times of crisis, such as during a pandemic or even during post-pandemic economic inflation, which we're experiencing right now. My neighbors and I have been actively caring for the fridge, contributing to it, and using it when we need food, be it eggs, tortillas, fresh herbs, produce, or holiday foods. We talk about it all the time. The fridge has brought us closer. I understand that your zoning department has received 3 complaints from the same one neighbor on my block who has a NIMBY attitude towards the fridge. But I encourage you to solicit broader community feedback about the fridge from the rest of the neighbors on my block, as well as from the schools and community-based organizations that have close ties with the communities that reside on SLC's west side. Please, winter is coming, consumer prices are rising. Be the innovative city that you're always saying you are and work with our community on overcoming the zoning and licensing issues that the fridge is currently experiencing by leading out on policy that supports this type of community care tool. Listen to and learn from our community, which simply wants to care for each other during these uncertain times. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Shea Klinghoffer and then Nigel Swaby, followed by Keiko Jones. Shea, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Shea Klinghoffer. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I'd like the council to address the lack of civil enforcement of our illegal short-term rentals in our city. Short-term rentals like Airbnb and Vrbo violate our residential zoning laws. And I purchased my home based on those zoning laws so my family could have a safe neighborhood where my kids could play outside, and I know who live next door. Because these zoning laws are not being enforced, I now live next to a hotel where more than 200 strangers come in and out smoking weed and having parties until 1 in the morning. The more strangers that come in and out of this property, the more risk my family has for a violent confrontation with someone who is drunk, high, or simply aggressive. Those strangers don't know that there are 13 children on our block, some of whom run across driveways and the street without looking, but the neighbors who live there do, and we look out for each other. Right now, there are over 300 illegal short-term rentals in our city, depriving full-time residents of a place to live because the city isn't enforcing the code. Long-term rentals require a business license and go through various inspections to prove the residence is safe. They provide stable housing as the rents must be appropriate for the market. These short-term rentals charge what's more than reasonable for a mortgage or monthly rental, bypass safety inspections and licenses as a way to make a quick profit, risking the health and safety of their guests and their neighbors. The owners of these rentals like to tell us we can't do anything about enforcing our laws because the platforms hide their addresses, but that's not true. Civil enforcement can contact them through the platforms and inform them they're breaking the law and need to remove the listing. If they refuse, civil enforcement can book a night at the property, and once they have the address, they can issue the fine. In addition, they can fine them for the cost to book the rental. The city has the potential to recoup more than $75,000 in initial fines and $300,000 for repeat offenders. I'd like civil enforcement to take a proactive approach instead of reactive. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Nigel Swaby, followed by Keiko Jones, and then Alejandro Pui. Nigel, you
Good
are
evening. Good evening, City Council. I'm calling in tonight as Chair of the Fair Park Community Council, and my comments represent the views of its Executive Board. We are opposed to the siting of the homeless overflow shelter at 1659 West North Temple, aka the Ramada Inn. 525 deeply affordable units are currently scheduled to be built within the next 2 years in or close to our neighborhood. It's time for other parts of the city, county, and state to step up and be responsible for providing these services to their residents. There's been no notice given to the businesses or residents next to or part of this site. Last year's temporary overflow became a permanent facility with zero public input. I toured the site earlier today. It is in bad condition. It's clear no deferred maintenance has been performed. The pool is closed and full of algae. Concrete curbing in the parking lot is crumbling. The stairs are rusting. Many of the rooms I saw had been stripped of fixtures and flooring. Some rooms have toilets sitting on beds. Common areas were in disrepair. It will cost far more money and take more time to bring this building back to code than the time needed to supply housing for this year's overflow. And finally, this council recently passed a resolution stating racism is a public health crisis. If you stand by this overflow resolution, if you stand by the racism resolution, you would never vote for citing nearly 300 units in the poorest zip code in the city, which also has the highest minority concentration. Voting for this site will violate your racism resolution and contribute to the systemic racism that continues to affect our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Now we will listen to Keiko Jones, followed by Alejandro Pui, and then Lucy Cardenas. Keiko, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Keiko, and before I go into my comment, I just have to say this. I love the bee motif behind the mayor. But with that said, I'm here tonight to support Fair Park Community Council Executive Board's position against using Ramada Inn at Redwood and North Temple as an overflow homeless shelter. There is an Indian restaurant as a part of the inn, and this will ruin their business. And I didn't know about the condition of the inn motel, but it's kind of sad. There are some other shady motels along North Temple But instead of turning them into shelters, I want to see North Temple revitalized and its gateway for visitors who fly in to the city. And I want to see North Temple just revitalized instead of turning it into a row of shelters. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Alejandro Puy, followed by Lucy Cardenas, and then George Chapman. Alejandro, you are unmuted.
Hi, good evening, City Council, Madam Mayor, and I do love that big background too. I was going to say that. I appreciate that being said before me. I sent an email earlier today. I had the opportunity to visit the location. My concerns are about mitigation. Mitigation to the immigrant-owned businesses in the area, one being the Ramada Inn. There is other ones, Nico's across the street, and other hardworking businesses that employ probably help dozens of families in our district. I also concerned about the Medina Masih mosque that has been reporting having all sorts of issues related to crime and other issues related to homelessness in the last few months, which is less than a block away. I sent an email with information about this. The 7-Eleven across the street, I dare anybody to go to that 7-Eleven at night. It is not an inviting place. Unfortunately, it's a very concerning location. And we need to also talk about that, the mitigation of what this is going to happen. I also want to talk about dignity very quick. I took dozens of photos today. I forward those to you. And it's dignity about those clients that that we're going to put in this hotel, that we're going to invite to live in the shelter in the winter. And I hope that the plan is accounting for some of this, the dignity. This motel is run down, and I'm very concerned. And I don't know who's going to pay for repairing and getting this place out in code, but it's very, very concerning the state of it. So I'm just asking those to decide to ask about mitigation for those small businesses, for those families, and for the clients that are going to be living there. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Lucy Cardenas, followed by Jean Hill, and then, sorry, it's followed by George Chapman and then Jean Hill. Lucy, you are unmuted. One second, Madam Mayor. This is, sorry, not Madam Mayor, Madam Chair. This is the call-in line, so there might be an issue there.
May I continue?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, we can hear you now.
My family has had a business. Thank you. My family has had a business in Salt Lake City since 1965. And I am a product of the Northwest Quadrant of Salt Lake City. I am against setting up a temporary overflow homeless shelter on North Temple. I, along with my husband, own Red Iguana 2, and Taste of Red Iguana. We serve over 1,000 visitors a day from all over the country. 1,000 visitors come to our neighborhood, and I want them to enjoy our neighborhood, to feel safe, to enjoy the businesses, the community, and to walk and feel welcomed in our city. We employ over 150 souls who have families, obligations, and dreams. And by the way, my husband and I live on 700 West, just off of North Temple. People experiencing homelessness breaks my heart. However, we must, as a city, come together to assist and give these souls the real assistance they need. This takes dollars, commitment, and the willingness from our leaders and from each of us to ask, why is this happening in this country? I walk my neighborhood daily, and I don't always like what I see. Enough is enough on the west side. Homelessness is a city, state, and nationwide crisis. Thank you for your time.
Great. Now we will have George. George, you are now unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Madam Mayor, drug dogs should be reactivated for all shelters. I don't think the citizens of this city should have any more shelters until drug dogs are reactivated and used at all shelters. Also, since this city only approved 63 detached homes last year and 1,500 apartments, we are not only becoming Apartmentville USA, but we are also making citizens poorer because the average net worth of homeowners is 40 times the average net worth of renters, according to studies. This city should care about the economic equity of its citizens and should open up the tens of thousands of acres to housing that we have, a mix of detached homes and apartments, but especially detached homes, since 12% of the city is single-family detached homes, less than 10% is multifamily. Again, if this city does not plan on and permit funding to encourage more detached housing, this city will be making the citizens poorer. And I agree with the previous commenter on Airbnb, since this city does not enforce obvious nuisance issues that were supposedly addressed by Mayor Mendenhall's ordinance. A lot of us really love the mayor effort and on that nuisance ordinance, but it's not being enforced. And if there are 300 short-time rentals and violence is proliferating in these rentals, why aren't they being charged with the mayor's ordinance? Those are my comments.
Now we will hear from Jean Hill, followed by Peter Karoun. Jean, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council. I do want to express the gratitude of the Salt Lake Valley Coalition on Homelessness for your willingness to consider this land use. I also want to thank the neighbors. We know there are many stakeholders involved in developing solutions to homelessness, and we're committed to being good partners to ensure we provide consistent care for individuals experiencing homelessness in collaboration with the surrounding community. We know the neighborhood in this vicinity has faced many pressures over the years, and we look forward to working with the community if this is approved as we serve the most vulnerable residents this winter. Thank you again for your consideration.
And now we will hear from Peter. Peter, you are unmuted.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. I want to echo what Alejandro said about mitigation. I think that's critical. Over the last couple of years, North Temple in some places has really been a war zone. Just last Sunday, I was visiting an affordable housing apartments that I helped construct. And there was a person in the lobby babbling to themselves, and I tried to ask them to leave, and they were not coherent. So I called the police and never heard back. So I would suggest that that if this goes forward, that there is some kind of mitigation plan to deal with the effects of having that resource center in that neighborhood. That's it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, there is nobody else here to speak.
Thank you all for your comments today. This brings us to new business. Sorry, to our new business section. Item H1 is an ordinance enacting temporary zoning regulations. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I believe we have a motion sheet. There may just be a little delay in sharing. Just hold on.
Thank you.
Sorry, it looks like there might be one more person to speak as well. I don't know. Oh, wait. Fine, I guess she left. So Taylor, can you share the motion sheet for the temporary the temporary land use regulation? Okay, I guess we had a mix up in who is sharing. Cindy Lou, can you share it?
Yes, I am just going to wait for the rights. Here they are. Thank you very much for your patience. Are you seeing the motion sheet screen?
I see. Oh,
It looks gray, Cindy Lou. It's like it's grayed out.
Is that better? Sorry about that.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance enacting temporary zoning regulations authorizing a temporary overflow homeless shelter used at approximately 1659 West North Temple Street, subject to a restriction that the temporary certificate of occupancy is not issued until perimeter fence around the building is completed. Also, the security and operations plan has been submitted to the city. I further move that Salt Lake City Police Department work with other law enforcement agencies to develop a collaborative plan to provide public safety services in the area surrounding the temporary shelter. I further move that to the extent possible, the administration utilize the resources of the Salt Lake City Economic Development Department to work with businesses in the immediate area to help mitigate the impact to them from the temporary shelter. I further move that the council initiated legislative action asking the administration to review and come back with recommendations for prohibiting temporary shelters until this jurisdiction in Salt Lake County permit them.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan. Is there a second? I have no second on this motion.
Madam Chair, I have a question on the motion. I thought we had discussed the ARPA funding to be contingent to other governmental agencies' commitment, and it's not there. So I don't know if it's on a second motion.
No, I don't think that. I think we took the ARPA funding off the table at this point. So it's not even being allocated right now.
That is correct. Based on the discussion during the budget amendment number 4 discussion, it can be raised again by the council at a later date.
Thank you for the clarification.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Council Member Dugan, a second by Council Member Wharton. Is there any discussion on this?
Yes, please. I'd like to read a statement.
Yes, go ahead, Council Member Petro Eschler.
The homelessness crisis is not new, especially for those of us on the West Side. Since before Operation Rio Grande, this crisis has been part of our landscape. I in no way make light of this crisis, nor do I absolve myself of the responsibility to work toward permanent and sustainable solutions. But winter comes on a predictable schedule each year. To have been asked to shoulder this burden as a city once is an emergency. To have been asked now several times, with the West Side targeted significantly, is a pattern. This pattern should disqualify this sort of ask as an emergency on an emergency basis. Instead, it's a seasonal request. My neighbors are under stress. If you walk the 4 blocks north along Redwood Road from this site to my own home, you would pass countless multifamily housing units in various states of disrepair. In my conversations with those who live there, maintaining adequate heat and food security throughout the winter months is consuming their waking and some of their sleeping hours. You'd pass a well-established West Side-grown business that is having difficulty offsetting their COVID recovery stress, supply chain issues, and reticence on the part of consumers to stop there due to the significant loitering already in their parking lot. You'd pass an entry point to the River Trail, a spot where our unsheltered neighbors have sought refuge and where the humanitarian crisis has been realized in its fullest form. In short, you would see our daily reality and you'd see our communal trauma. The emergency shelter is absolutely a necessity. This location, however, is absolutely unacceptable. There is a beloved restaurant on the premises, an immigrant-owned, West Side nurtured community institution. In fact, this area of Salt Lake City is the embodiment of the American dream. People from all over the world dig in here and take the risk to prove themselves, grow vibrant businesses, and in turn employ neighbors and give our community its unique and undeniable personality. There are several other immigrant-owned eateries within walking distance of this spot. All of the schools within walking distance of this spot are Title I. The Denny's across the street is a destination for our senior generation who continue to gather there as they have for the past 40 years. After being the home to the highest COVID rates in the state and suffering under the burdens of every sort from that, there's no way to ask my neighbors and this community to take on this burden with any sense of justice or rightness. To call us NIMBY would be to fundamentally misunderstand the issue of basic equity. We are quite simply a community with an undue amount of stress that cannot absorb the consequences of this placement. My fear for the conditions that could be here very soon and the impacts on the unsheltered population is real and it's notable. My familiarity with the conditions that make this plan unsustainable is also real and also notable. Beyond even the above-mentioned concerns, this action could stand to further undermine the trust that West Side residents have in our city government. The sentiments I have received today have ranged from comments seeking clarification as to why the ban on shelters does not protect our side of the city. I've had to explain temporary versus permanent. And we had even Rose Park resident James Ord express anger by describing this sort of work as redlining homelessness into our particular community. Notably, his son's car was stolen last night from in front of his own house for the 3rd time. I cannot consent to this plan. Literally 100% of the community feedback I have received in the 24 hours my neighbors have known about this has been in opposition. Without a public comment period and with such a short notification period, I would be failing in my first major vote as a representative of District 1 if I fail to oppose this location and to ask my fellow councilors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there other discussion on this?
Madam Chair, I just want to say that I completely agree with the comments that have been shared with not only by the residents, but also by our colleague. However, and I'm also this vote is extremely difficult as someone who's been going to and consistently meeting with residents on North Temple every week, that this would be going against what we're trying to do there. But I think as a temporary proposal, if we don't have a homeless shelter for this winter, all of the problems that we've talked about and that have been outlined, I think, have the potential of getting worse, not better. And so while I don't in any way like this proposal, I don't like the process that we've been forced to go through to bring us to this point. I don't like the lack of input. Ultimately, I don't think we as a group of electeds can have people, potentially freezing to death on the streets of our city. It is a national epidemic, but we have to do, Salt Lake City steps up and does this every year because our residents value and understand that this is a crisis that we have to try to at least do our part to protect our unhoused neighbors from death. And so as much as I completely agree with everything that's been said, we're elected to make these really difficult decisions. And when there aren't any good options on the table, and I think that's where we find ourselves tonight, what I hope the commenters hear from our discussions and from our contingencies that we're attaching to this is that we absolutely are taking the concerns of the community seriously. We are doing everything we can to try to address every single point that has been brought up by residents. We want to do right by this neighborhood. We want to do right by these businesses and the Star of India in particular. And I believe that we can with this proposal and with these contingencies. And so I just, what I really hope is that residents hear that we have tried to address all of those things with what we're outlining, and I really don't want this pattern to continue. But I also can't. It's a life and death decision, and so I will be supporting it, and I will continue to be resolute in trying to find something for something better going forward. Absolutely.
Anna?
I also would like a few words.
Sorry.
Go
ahead.
So Salt Lake City is asked once again for the third time in as many years to allow a temporary overflow shelter. This is the second time in a row in an already very stressed part of town. We're once again forced into a corner to make a decision on a statewide issue that hasn't been addressed on time by anyone, including us. It is yet again the 11th hour. Salt Lake City's neighbors have gone above and beyond welcoming resource centers with little or no say. We have made promises alongside with the service providers, which we have not been able to keep. We have burdened our neighborhoods and our police and fire departments, both requesting additional funding for overtime, for more staff, and having to apologize for not being able to tend to all of the issues they are expected to deal with. I find it insulting that the providers will shy away from insisting that other cities do their fair part and take on some of their responsibility, stating, quote, "Other cities' options possess substantial economic and logistical barriers." And in another city, which requested confidentiality, which proved to be unfeasible. In addition to municipal options, Unincorporated areas throughout Salt Lake County were also explored and found not to be viable. Close quote. Once again, pushing Salt Lake City into a corner and shaming us if we don't comply. Insinuating that we also don't have any of these barriers, that wouldn't suffer similar economic and neighborhood impacts, completely disregarding Salt Lake City's exemplary effort to help the county and state's homeless and mentally ill population. I do not feel Salt Lake City is given credit for all that we already do. We are not being sufficiently supported by other local and state leaders, nor acknowledged for the enormous effort we undertake, which we do year after year on a limited budget at the expense of our neighborhood's peace and quality of life, because it's obviously the right thing to do, guys. I've been asked to allow a currently prohibited use to be in an already stressed area. That is not fair to Salt Lake City. I've been asked if the conditions to allow a prohibited use are sufficient to mitigate the impacts in this neighborhood. They are not. I'm not supporting this. Please, 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 let's not find ourselves in this exact same place at the 11th hour again next year.
Other discussion? Darren?
Madam Chair, thank you. This is a very difficult decision, and I agree that this is not the best location for this use. It's an already stressed part of the city, and it's difficult. However, I also agree that there are human beings that will potentially freeze on our streets if we don't vote for this. So I am prepared to vote for the temporary land use ordinance to allow this use. However, unless I hear something very different between now and I guess December 7th, I'm not prepared to vote for using our money to fund it. I think that money needs to come from the state or the county or somebody else, because we need that $1 million to support the businesses and the residents on North Temple and the community that is shouldering this burden. We need that money to support police overtime, to create stability as much as possible. So again, unless I get very clear direction otherwise from my constituents, or there's new information that I currently don't have, I'm willing to support this, but I'm not going to be willing to support using our money to fund it. I think we need that money to support our residents for whom we are allowing this use to come into their neighborhood.
Other further discussion? Dennis?
My heart is about to beat out of my chest. It was recently pointed out to me, an article in the Deseret News from December of 1996 that pointed out how once again, like so many years previous, the city was just about to open a winter overflow shelter at the very last moment, sited in Ballpark. This has been going on for decades. We absolutely need to find a better solution. But this is not certainly something that has happened within the last 3 years. And I feel that we have made far more progress within the last 3 years towards a better solution, towards having more amenable partners throughout the county than ever before. I actually see some light at the end of the tunnel there. It's a pinprick at this point, but I see some. I've also spent the last almost 2 years, along with multiples of my fellow council members, meeting in areas along North Temple, trying to work to mitigate the impacts of crime on the neighborhood in that area. we have been talking for the last some weeks about potentially closing a public space to access, to be able to disrupt the culture that's there, to be able to break up the patterns that have existed. The intersection that we are discussing today of North Temple and Redwood Road hosts 4 of the top 10 addresses for calls for service from the Salt Lake City Police Department on the west side. Placing this resource in that space, which is one of those sites, in my mind, could very potentially disrupt the culture of what is stressing that neighborhood so very drastically right now. To be able to program the space, to bring in proper staffing, as we've dictated in this temporary land use regulation, staffing 24/7, fencing off the property to maintain its security, having 24-hour security staff in place, multiples of them, as recommended by a private security company with lots of experience in this arena. Also, all of our mitigation efforts that obviously every one of us is firmly in favor of, bringing to bear multiple law enforcement agencies, specifically in the very near vicinity, to be able to maintain security, both of that facility, but as well as the neighborhood as a whole. I think this can give us a really good shot at trying to break up the culture that has persisted in that area. We've talked about and implemented in the temporary land use regulation, mitigation including fencing, security, law enforcement, 24/7 staffing, programming, bringing to bear economic development resources to assist any impacted businesses. Everyone here is absolutely very concerned about the area, and I think that I find that somewhat reassuring in this case, knowing that I can trust my fellow council members, the administration, to be working for the best needs of our city in the future. But because of the lives on the line and the valiant efforts for all the mitigation that we are putting in place, I have to be able to support this motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You can see this weighed heavily on all of us because we sat there for moments with a motion sheet in our emails. And it wasn't an easy decision. And it has been a long discussion. And it's been coming from the heart and all the decisions we've made here. Look at all our faces on this screen right now. No one is smiling. It's not an easy decision. But in truth that I feel is this is coming from the heart and we have to make this decision because this is, it is going to impact the residents of the neighborhood. It's impacting the city. It's impacting all of us. And I wish I could solve that problem. But we have to do this from the heart because this great city does it from the heart. We take care of our people and we need to take care of this group right here. And I appreciate the discussion and we have to continue to push forward and lead from the frontier across this state because the state and the county and everybody else needs us to lead from here. And so, yes, it's a tough decision, but it's the right decision that we need to make as a city. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, council members. Madam Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to say before I move on?
It's generous of you to invite me to, Madam Chair and council members. I share in the agony over this vote that you're facing tonight, and in a way I've been where you're at before. I can feel it. And I think that we share in a belief that it is the responsibility of every city in this county, and it is the responsibility of the state of Utah to host an emergency shelter. And yet here we are, once again, being asked to do what no other city in this county will do. The temperature's dropping tonight, and we're asked to site another homeless emergency winter overflow shelter. And when I issued the 6-month pause on the creation of new permanent shelters in the city, I intentionally left this door open for temporary overflow because I believe that despite the fact that our city already hosts far more than its fair share of homeless services, I think that our city's residents would rather have people with a shelter option than see people with nowhere to go, freezing and dying on our streets. And after really unsuccessfully requesting that other cities in the county cooperate with the coalition, whose job it is to site a winter shelter, not the city, the coalition identified a site in the North Temple neighborhood and has asked the city, as they would have to ask any city for a temporary land use permit. And the fact that the site identified is on our city's west side is even more egregious, and it compounds the day-to-day inequity that our residents and businesses in that area deal with on a daily basis. This is not a location of the city's choosing by any measure. Don't be mistaken, city residents. This is not a request of your capital city. This is a request of the Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness. And I am frustrated. I'm frustrated how disproportionately and largely unsupported the efforts of our city are to bring relief to the statewide homelessness crisis. And I think I saw my frustrations really matched by yours in your discussions today in the work session, and even just now, that I felt reflected a waning willingness for us to continuously host the vast majority of services in this county. I'm with you on that. But because there is a fundamental human crisis that's underpinning this request by the coalition, and there is no alternative for substantial winter shelter, I commend you as our city council for working so quickly on this. Your action tonight, if this passes, will save lives. But I know that we all agree that our residents and our businesses in the city deserve a more balanced path forward. And we've talked over the many months about the distribution of beds among neighboring cities that need to happen, not only in Salt Lake City, and that we need dependable, adequate state funding for public safety the way South Salt Lake and Midvale receive every single year. Our city residents shouldn't have to pay for the public safety costs on their own. So I'm slightly encouraged that the coalition has located a handful of emergency beds outside of the city for this winter, and that it's been recommended just in the last week that our city receive more mitigation funding from the state than in all years past combined. But I am mostly determined that the generosity and the community-minded spirit that is Salt Lake City is not taken for granted going forward, and that our city is better respected with a fair partnership and the critical support that we need. So that, as Council Member Valdemoro said, that we are not back here in 12 months with this same situation. Thanks for giving me a minute, Madam Chair.
Thank you all. Before I take a vote, I am going to take a point of personal privilege as well and say a few things. Most everything that I feel has been said by each and every one of the council members and Madam Mayor. 3 years ago, when we had a temporary site here in Sugar House, I said the exact words, "How can you assure that we will not be here next year?" And I was assured that there would be a plan. That was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And we're still here today. And I am frustrated beyond belief that we are the ones and our residents are the ones that bear this burden. It sometimes feels as if our compassion gets taken advantage of. When this, so something that I think the public also needs to understand is that there was no public hearing because of the way that this is a temporary land use rezone. There have been multiple discussions in small group meetings to address council members' concerns. But all of that has been done so very quickly. Our staffs have been working triple overtime in order to address all of our concerns. One of the things I hope that residents can understand is that this is not taken lightly. One of the things that makes it okay, well, two things that make it okay for me to vote yes on this is that we did place conditions. We have, from the very beginning, tried to balance in the best way possible the needs and safety of the surrounding community with the needs and safety of our unsheltered communities. I have had the opportunity to participate in kayak court, where we have been able to kayak down the Jordan River and offer services to people experiencing homelessness that take refuge there. In my capacity, I offer legal services, and it's one of the most fulfilling things I've been able to do. And I've met friends, people that I've helped that we check in on. And I can't imagine not having a place for someone to go and get warm. One of those souls that I met on that river not have a place to go and be warm and sheltered from the storm. And just like every single one of us, we are all frustrated. And I do call on the state, the county, and other municipalities throughout the state to step up. Show us your compassion as well. I appreciate all of the hard work that each and every one of you have put into this. This has been, and I feel like in my 4 years on this council, I've made some pretty tough decisions, and we've been in some pretty controversial places. I think this one, I don't know that I've ever seen our council look like this and feel like this in making a vote here. With that, I have, to reiterate, a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Wharton, and I will roll call. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Voldemoros.
No.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
No.
Naomi, yes. That passes 5-2. We are on agenda item I1, which is unfinished business. Designating the Central Business Improvement Assessment Area and to appoint a board of equalization. City Recorder Cindy Lou Trishman will read out the results of written protests to the proposed assessment district before the City Council chair seeks a motion. Cindy Lou?
Thank you, Council Chair. City Recorder's Office was open to receive protests during the outline period and received one protest. The percentage of commercial taxable properties that protested was 0.02%. As the sum total of protests does not account for more than 40% of the commercial taxable property or 40% of the property owner's total linear footage, the City Council may proceed with the designation of the Central Business Improvement Area if so determined. In addition to this information, the Recorder's Office has coordinated with necessary parties to update the motion for the creation of the Board of Equalization to include the appointment of City Council staff Jennifer Bruno, Ben Ludke, and Nick Tarbett to attend on behalf of the council if council members are unavailable at the designated Board of Equalization meetings times listed in the resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Cindy Lou. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the resolutions. Do I have to, Cindy Lou, do I have to read the full resolutions?
No, if you just refer to the motion sheet as we did the budget amendment, and with the only amendment, I suppose, on the motion sheet is the addition of the specific names of staff.
So I move that the council adopt the resolution, including the appointment of Jennifer Bruno and Lutke or Nick Carvett as council representatives as needed.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Mono. Roll calling this. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
I'm a yes, and that passes. Moving on to item I2, a resolution regarding a master lease agreement with JP Morgan Chase Bank. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council approve a resolution authorizing a master lease agreement between the city and JP Morgan Chase Bank for vehicle leasing and purchasing services.
Second, anyone?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Mono. Roll calling. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
I already voted, but yes.
Oh, sorry. Did I get everyone? Councilmember Ferris, did I get you?
Yes.
There we go. You guys jumped around on my tiles. I apologize. I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. We are on to the last section, the consent portion of our agenda. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Roll calling. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
I am a yes, and that passes. Before we adjourn, I do want to say thank you to all of you and the hard work that everyone has put in throughout the last couple of weeks, especially, and the discussions we had today. Yes, Cindy Lou. Oh, Board of Canvassers. We should probably do that. Forgot.
So following your adjournment as the council, of course.
We are adjourning as I stand by what I say with the hard work you guys put in as council members. So we're adjourning. Do I need a motion to adjourn as council?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do, and I move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and a second by Councilmember Dugan. I am going to go ahead and roll call. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Ferris.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Waldemoros,
Yes.
Peter Eschler,
Yes.
Mano.
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes. We're adjourned. We are now convening for a limited meeting as the Board of Canvassers, which means this is not a standard formal meeting and there is no general comment section. Tonight, the agenda only has one new business agenda item regarding a resolution canvassing, accepting, and approving the results of the municipal general election held in Salt Lake City, Utah on November 2nd, 2021. As the city's elected officials and as per state law, the Board of Canvassers for municipal elections includes the City Council and Mayor. Therefore, a quorum and a simple majority consists of 5 board members. Certified vote totals are shown on the election results report. Moving on to our new business item as the Board of Canvassers, item E1, regarding the canvass of Salt Lake City Municipal General Election 2021. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry, we do need to read the report.
Oh, it doesn't say that in my script, so I am happy to have you read the report, or Lauren, whoever is reading.
Thank you.
All right, I am going to pull up the report really quickly. So, in the 2021 municipal general election, there were 68,149 registered voters, 23,692 ballots cast for a total voter percentage turnout of 34.77%. As the city participated in the ranked choice voting method through the municipal alternative voting pilot project, the numbers I am providing are representative of the top 2 candidates listed in the final phase. For City Council District 1, Victoria Petro Eschler at 1,713 votes in the final phase, duly elected. Blake Perez at 1,589 votes in the final phase. For City Council District 2, a 2-year term, Alejandro Ale Puy 1,072 votes in the final phase.
Lauren, I'm sorry to interrupt.
For City Council
Lauren.
District 3,
Okay, turn off my video. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, but we need you to go back to
Video. Can everyone hear
just
me?
start at Alejandro because it was unclear.
Madam Chair, we're just going to manage the feedback really quick, and we'll be right back to it, and we'll begin with District 2.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry for the delay.
No worries.
Okay, can everyone hear me and see me okay now? Great.
Yes, we can.
I will start at District 2. Is that where I cut off? Okay. For City Council District 2, which is a 2-year term, Alejandro Ale Puy at 1,378 votes in the final phase, duly elected. Billy Palmer at 1,072 votes in the final phase. For City Council District 3, Chris Wharton at 3,750 votes in the final phase, duly elected. Casey O'Brien McDonough at 1,231 votes in the final phase. For City Council District 5, Aaron Mono at 2,907 votes in the final phase, duly elected. Sarah Reel at 1,447 votes in the final phase.
And for City Council District 7, Amy Fowler at 3,798 votes in the final phase, duly elected. Ben Raskin at 1,666 votes in the final phase.
Thank you, Lauren. I believe now I am okay to ask for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Canvassers adopt the proposed resolution accepting, approving, and certifying the results of the municipal general elections held in Salt Lake City, Utah on November 2nd, 2021.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Ferris. Roll calling Councilmember Mono,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferris,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros,
Vigorously, yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Petro Eschler.
Yes.
And I am a yes, that passes unanimously. I believe that we are now adjourned for the evening.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilmember.
doesn't the mayor need to vote?
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Mayor Mendenhall.
Yes.
Now I think
The
that
only
we
time I
can.
vote ever. Yes. thank
I'm
you.
sorry I tried to leave you out of that vote. It certainly was not intentional,
Not
Madam Mayor.
natural to include me, so it's totally fine, and I'm happy to vote yes.
Perfect. With that said, that does pass unanimously. And now I believe we're finally adjourned for the evening. Thank you all.